Do you know that the most dangerous manipulators don't control you with force? They do it so subtly that you don't even realize it's happening? They twist words, play mind games, and make you question your own reality. By the time you notice, they've already gained control over your thoughts, emotions, and decisions. The worst part? Master manipulators often appear charming, kind, or even helpful at first. That's why so many people fall into their trap until it's too late. But if you know what to look for, you can spot the warning signs before they take control. In this video, I'll reveal 7 subtle signs that you're dealing with a master manipulator. Some of these are so sneaky that most people never catch them. Stay with me till the very end because the last sign is the ultimate red flag that reveals their true nature instantly. Let's dive in. Number 1, they make you doubt your own perceptions. You know those moments when you start to question everything, your thoughts, your feelings, even the way you see the world around you? It's like someone's planted this tiny seed of doubt, and now it's growing, twisting its way through your mind, making you question the very foundation of your beliefs. That's what happens when people or situations make you doubt your own perceptions. It's subtle at first, this creeping uncertainty. It doesn't hit you all at once. No, it sneaks in, almost like a whisper in the back of your head, and before you know it, you're looking at everything you thought you knew with a different, more skeptical eye. It starts small. Maybe someone questions the way you interpret something. Maybe they don't even realize they're doing it, but they've just planted a little idea that your thoughts could be wrong. And for some reason, instead of brushing it off, your mind starts to obsess over it. You replay conversations, moments, even your own past decisions, wondering if maybe you missed something, misunderstood something, or worse, if you've been living under some delusion this whole time. And that's the thing about doubt. It doesn't just affect what you think. It messes with your entire perception of reality. What you once considered obvious can suddenly feel slippery. You start second-guessing your instincts. Was that feeling of unease really just your gut telling you something wasn't right? Or was it just a product of your imagination? That gut feeling starts to lose its power when you're constantly questioning whether it's reliable or not. The problem with doubt is that it feeds on itself. The more you question, the more you open the door to other doubts creeping in. Then there's the emotional toll. When someone, whether it's a person or even a situation, makes you question your reality, it's not just your thoughts that get tangled. Your emotions do too. You begin to feel unsure of yourself, anxious, even insecure. It's like you're standing on shaky ground, but the worst part is, you don't even know where the cracks are. You can't tell if the shaky feeling is because you're actually wrong about something or if it's just a product of all the self-doubt that's building up. It's a weird kind of disorientation, isn't it? This sense that everything you've known could be upended in an instant. It's almost like someone's rewiring the way you think, telling you that maybe your thoughts aren't as valid as you once believed. This is where the struggle begins, because once doubt seeps into your perception, it's hard to differentiate between what's real and what's been influenced by that lingering uncertainty. It becomes a battle of trust. Do you trust what you've always known to be true, or do you start questioning it all? The mind, when left unchecked, can start to spiral. What was once a clear-cut situation now feels murky. Your confidence falters, and that once solid foundation of understanding starts to feel like it's sinking beneath you. You're walking on a tightrope, and every step feels unsure, because you've lost the ability to fully trust your own perspective. It's as if everything has been pulled into the gray area, with no clear answers, just a constant tug-of-war between what feels right and what feels uncertain. And what's the endgame in all of this? The irony is that the more you doubt your own perceptions, the more you distance yourself from your own reality. It's as if someone else's opinion, or the situation at hand, becomes the lens through which you're supposed to see the world. But the moment you start doing that, you lose a bit of yourself. You stop trusting your own instincts, your own interpretation of events, And that's when things get really tricky. Ultimately, this sort of doubt doesn't just challenge your views, it can completely reshape them. It can erode your confidence in the way you see yourself, the world, and your relationships with others. So, the next time someone, or something, tries to make you question your reality, it's worth taking a moment to pause. It's okay to question, but don't let that seed of doubt grow unchecked. Sometimes, your perception is all you've got, and holding on to that is more important than you might realize. Number 2, they twist facts to fit their narrative. When people twist facts to fit their narrative, they're playing a dangerous game. It's like they've found the perfect puzzle piece that doesn't really belong, but they cram it in anyway because it's the piece they want. And at first glance, it might look like it fits, sometimes it's even pretty convincing. But the moment you start to look closer, you realize that something doesn't add up. Facts, in this case, aren't just being misrepresented, they're being manipulated to tell a story that serves a specific agenda. Now, this doesn't always happen in some grand, obvious way. Sometimes, it's small things. Little details get left out, context gets reshaped, and before you know it, the truth has been massaged into something that sounds almost right, but isn't. You might hear someone say something like, X happened because of Y, when in reality, that link between X and Y doesn't exist the way they're making it seem. But the thing is, when you've heard something enough times, you start to believe it. It doesn't matter that the facts aren't lined up perfectly, it's the idea behind them that begins to feel true. What's so tricky about this is how subtle it often is. The people doing the twisting usually aren't out here screaming lies from the rooftops. No, they're more clever than that. They weave their narrative into everyday conversations, presenting just enough truth to make you nod along in agreement. And then, as if by magic, the twisted parts feel just as real. They may throw in a "well, studies have shown," or the facts speak for themselves as a way of giving their version some weight. And you're left thinking, wait, maybe I missed something, even though you didn't. They've made you doubt your own perceptions without even realizing it. This kind of manipulation is all about control. They know that if they can make you question your understanding of what's really happening, they can steer the conversation wherever they want. It's like walking into a room full of people who are all pointing in one direction, and suddenly, you're not sure if you should follow their gaze or if you're the only one seeing things clearly. You start to second-guess yourself. Did you misinterpret that thing? Were you too quick to judge? When you're not sure where the truth actually lies, it's a lot easier to fall in line with whatever version of events they're selling. The more they twist, the more you start to feel like you don't know what's real anymore. It's like looking at a distorted reflection in a funhouse mirror. You know something is off, but the longer you stare at it, the more you start to wonder if that's what you actually look like. Facts, when they're twisted in this way, are like that mirror. They make you question your own senses. They distort things just enough to blur the lines between what's true and what's been altered to fit a purpose. And when you're caught in that blur, it's hard to step back and see things clearly again. It's the masterstroke of manipulation, leaving you unsure of your own perspective. They don't even have to do the hard work of changing your mind, they just need to make you uncertain enough to allow their version to take hold. And once that happens, you'll start seeing the world through their lens. Before long, the twisted facts become so ingrained that they shape how you understand everything around you. You begin to judge situations, people, and events based on a narrative that's been bent to someone else's will. So, the next time you're faced with a piece of information that feels like it's just a little too convenient, or if someone seems overly confident about their version of the truth, take a moment. Ask yourself, is this piece fitting into the puzzle the way it's supposed to? Or is someone playing with the pieces, forcing them into a shape they were never meant to take? Number 3, they use guilt to control you. When it comes to controlling someone, one of the sneakiest tactics people use is guilt. It's subtle, often so ingrained in the way we live that we don't even realize it's happening. But make no mistake, Guilt is powerful, and it's one of the most effective tools for making you question your own decisions, your own judgment, and even your very sense of self-worth. At first, it can feel harmless. It could be as simple as a comment here and there, something that catches you off guard, makes you feel bad for not doing something or for doing something that might not line up with someone else's expectations. You start feeling like you owe them something, or that somehow, you're failing them. It's like a low hum in the back of your mind, a feeling that's hard to shake. But the more it happens, the more it builds, until it starts to change the way you act, the way you think, and maybe even who you are. The thing is, guilt works best when it's paired with your own insecurities. People know this, and they use it to their advantage. They'll latch onto something that makes you feel weak, something that's already on your mind or something you're trying to hide, and they'll twist it just enough to make you feel responsible for their discomfort. Maybe you did something small, maybe it's something big, but suddenly it's all on your shoulders, as if you're the one to blame for the way they're feeling. And guess what? The more you apologize, the more you're convinced you've done something wrong, the more power they have over you. It's like a never-ending loop. You feel guilty, they exploit that guilt, and you end up doing things you never thought you would, just to make that feeling go away. Here's where it gets tricky. Guilt is hard to argue with. It doesn't shout at you, it doesn't demand your attention like anger or frustration. Instead, it whispers. It creeps up slowly, until you're questioning your own perceptions. You start thinking, did I really do that? Maybe I am the problem here. You begin to wonder if you're being unreasonable or if you're just overreacting. The lines between what you genuinely feel and what you're being made to feel get blurry. Over time, the original situation doesn't matter as much as the guilt that has settled in. It morphs into something much bigger. The people who use guilt as a form of control aren't necessarily doing it intentionally or with malice, they might not even realize they're doing it. But that doesn't change the effect it has. Guilt doesn't just leave you feeling bad in the moment, it can change how you make decisions in the future. You start to second-guess yourself. Should I really do this? What will they think? Will I feel guilty afterward? And just like that, the control slips in unnoticed, because now, even when you make a choice, it's shaped by someone else's feelings, not your own beliefs or desires. Sometimes, the worst part of it all is that guilt often makes you feel like you're being a good person by giving in. You start to think that by constantly putting others first, by bending to their will, you're showing compassion or kindness. But in reality, you're just letting someone dictate your actions through manipulation. It's almost like they've managed to plant a seed in your mind, one that grows every time you feel guilty, until it takes root in your core beliefs. You end up defining your worth by how much you can give, how much you can sacrifice, even at the expense of your own happiness. But here's the truth, you don't need to be controlled by guilt. Recognizing when it's being used against you is the first step. Trust your instincts. Your feelings, your thoughts, your choices, they matter. The moment you let guilt take over, you lose sight of who you are. And that's exactly what they want. So, take a step back, breathe, and remember that your worth isn't defined by how much you can make others feel comfortable. Your choices are yours to make, and you shouldn't feel guilty for that. Number 4, they give backhanded compliments. There's something about backhanded compliments that's just so unsettling, right? On the surface, it's a compliment, a word of praise. But if you really listen, really hear it, there's something lurking just beneath the surface. It's like a slap wrapped in a velvet glove. You can't quite place it at first, but it starts to make you feel weird, unsure. You don't know whether to say thank you or question what was really meant. These compliments are sneaky. They sneak in under the radar, dressed up as praise, but they're actually thinly veiled criticisms. It's a strange dynamic. One moment, someone's telling you how great you look, but the next, they're mentioning something oddly personal or pointing out how surprisingly good you look considering your circumstances. The compliment itself isn't the problem, it's the implication buried beneath it. Suddenly, you're questioning your appearance or your worth. Did they just say you shouldn't look good? Are they implying something about you that you weren't aware of? The thing with backhanded compliments is that they leave you in this awkward space where you can't really respond. If you call out the hidden jab, you risk looking overly sensitive. But if you brush it off, then maybe you're accepting the criticism wrapped in a shiny bow. You're stuck between a rock and a hard place. It's not the words themselves that hurt so much as the undercurrent of doubt they create. It's like someone's trying to take a little jab at your self-esteem while hiding behind the cloak of positivity. It's all about control. The person giving the backhanded compliment wants to maintain the upper hand. They want to feel superior without outright insulting you. So they coat their words in this layer of praise, making it hard for you to challenge what's really being said. But deep down, you can sense the manipulation. The message is, I'm giving you a compliment, but here's a subtle reminder of where you stand, just in case you forget. It's like being told that you're doing well, but only because you've come a long way from where you started, implying that you weren't really great to begin with. And this doesn't just mess with your confidence in the moment, it lingers. It sticks with you longer than any straightforward compliment ever could. You start replaying the words over and over in your mind. It's like your brain is trying to make sense of what just happened. You find yourself wondering, did they mean it? Or was that a dig? You start questioning your own perception of the situation, doubting whether you're being overly sensitive or if there really was something off about it. The real kicker is when these backhanded compliments come from people who are supposed to be on your side. A friend, a colleague, someone you trust. They make it even harder to dissect the intent behind the words. It's one thing if it's coming from someone you don't know, but when it's someone close to you, it feels like a betrayal. How do you confront someone who's supposed to be supportive, but is, in a roundabout way, cutting you down? It's almost like a psychological game, where your self-esteem is the pawn. When you're constantly given these mixed signals, you start to question yourself. You wonder if you really are too sensitive, or if you're just imagining things. These compliments can make you doubt your worth, leaving you wondering if maybe you really aren't as good as you thought. That's the subtle power of a backhanded compliment. It doesn't just praise you, it gets inside your head and starts rearranging your perception of yourself, making you feel uncertain and small, even when it looks like they're trying to build you up. It's tough because these compliments don't always feel like outright insults. You can't point to a specific thing and say, that's an attack. It's the ambiguity that does the real damage. You're left in a state of confusion, wondering if you're overreacting, questioning whether your perception is even trustworthy anymore. It's like you're walking a tightrope, trying to balance between accepting a compliment and protecting your self-worth. And often, these backhanded compliments do more harm in the long run than any direct criticism ever could. So, next time someone gives you a compliment that feels off, trust your instincts. There's no need to second-guess yourself. Don't let these hidden criticisms slide by unnoticed. Because in the end, the more you let those backhanded compliments slide, the more you start to doubt your own perceptions. And that's exactly what they want. Number 5. They play the victim to gain sympathy. There's something about playing the victim that's strangely powerful. It's not just about being seen as weak or helpless, it's about getting people to rally around you, to see you as someone deserving of support. And when someone's skillful at it, you won't even notice they're doing it. Suddenly, you're sympathizing, offering comfort, maybe even feeling guilty for something you didn't do. It's like they've pulled you into their world without you even realizing it. It's not always about the obvious signs of victimhood either. You know, the ones where someone's clearly hurt or upset, and you instantly want to help. No, it's more subtle than that. It's in the way they tell a story that casts them as the underdog. They weave their narrative in such a way that it sounds like they've been wronged, like the world is against them, and you're left wondering how you can step in and fix things. They don't just tell you they're struggling, they make you feel their struggle. And that's where it gets tricky. Sometimes, it can feel like you're being forced to choose sides. When someone portrays themselves as the victim, they make you feel like you have to either stand with them or against them. They set up this emotional barrier, where if you don't side with their pain, you're the bad guy. It's a trap, really. Because once they've made you feel sorry for them, once they've got your sympathy, they're one step closer to controlling how you think about them and their situation. It's almost like they're asking you to become a part of their story, to become emotionally invested in their journey, without ever really earning it. It doesn't even matter if what they're saying is true. They've learned the art of crafting a narrative that appeals to your emotions, not your logic. You're not looking for cold, hard facts anymore. Instead, you're absorbed in the idea that they're the victim, and that's enough for you to feel like you need to act. What's fascinating is how they don't always play this role in an overtly dramatic way. Sometimes, it's just in the tone they use, or the way they position themselves as just trying to get by while the world around them is being unfair. And suddenly, it's not about the situation, it's about them. You feel their hurt, their frustration, and before long, you're caught up in it. It can be exhausting, honestly. Because what starts as empathy slowly morphs into a sense of obligation. They've made you believe that you have to be there for them, that somehow, their suffering is something you're responsible for alleviating. And when you're caught in that cycle, it can feel like you're constantly giving, always trying to fix things or make them feel better. But here's the thing, they're not asking for help, they're asking for control. They've used their victim status to gain leverage, to get what they want from you, whether it's attention, approval, or even a change in how you view them. And if you ever start to question their narrative or call them out, that's when the true power of the victim card comes into play. Suddenly, they've got you doubting your own perceptions. How could you say that to me after everything I've been through, they'll say. The moment you challenge them, they'll flip the script and make you feel like the one who's in the wrong, like you're attacking them instead of helping. It's the ultimate move, making you feel guilty for questioning the very thing that got you caught up in their web in the first place. It's hard to break free from, too. Once you're emotionally invested in someone's victimhood, it's tough to take a step back and see the bigger picture. You start thinking you're helping when, in reality, they've got you stuck in their narrative. It's not about healing or growing, it's about staying in that cycle of sympathy and dependency, where they always need someone to feel bad for them. They've mastered the art of making you doubt your own instincts, and before you know it, you're not sure if you're seeing the situation clearly anymore. So, next time someone pulls the victim card on you, just pause for a moment. Take a step back and ask yourself, are they really asking for help? Or are they asking for your sympathy to keep you locked in their story? Because once they've made you doubt yourself, they've already won. Number 6, they subtly isolate you from others. Isolating someone doesn't always mean taking them away from everyone else physically or locking them in a room somewhere. Sometimes, the isolation is quieter, more subtle. It's about creating an environment where you feel like you can't trust anyone but the person doing the isolating. And let's be clear, this is one of the most effective ways to make someone doubt their own perceptions. The less input you get from others, the more you start relying on the one person who's slowly pulling the strings. It starts off innocently enough. Maybe they casually suggest that someone you trust doesn't really understand you or might not have your best interests at heart. At first, it seems like just a harmless opinion, a simple thought shared between two people. But slowly, over time, these little comments build up. Maybe it's a question about why your friend didn't invite you to something, or why they didn't seem to support a decision you made. Are they really your friend? Wouldn't it be better if you spent more time with people who truly understand you? These aren't attacks, they're just soft nudges, little seeds planted in your mind, all aimed at pushing you further away from your support network. Before you even realize it, you start second-guessing everyone around you. Those friends or family members you once felt so close to? Now, they're not so trustworthy. You start to feel uncertain, questioning if they really have your back. The person who's subtly isolating you is good at twisting your perception of reality. They make you doubt the intentions of others, convince you that their way is the only way that makes sense. It's not that they're forcing you to cut ties with anyone, it's more like they're helping you see things differently. At least, that's how they make it seem. This kind of isolation doesn't just remove the people you might lean on for support, it creates a situation where your world starts to feel smaller. When you're constantly made to feel like you're the only one who understands, like everyone else is either misinformed or just plain wrong, you start to turn inward. You rely more and more on the person doing the isolating because, well, they're the only one left who seems to truly get you. And that's where the real danger lies. Over time, you stop sharing your thoughts and feelings with others because you've been made to believe that no one will understand. Why bother talking to someone who doesn't get it? It's easier to just rely on the person who has been feeding you their version of reality. Slowly, your circle shrinks, and the only voice you hear is the one that's been guiding you down this path. What they've done is create an echo chamber, a place where their influence is all you hear. You stop questioning things. The world outside your little bubble becomes more and more distant, until you start to believe that maybe this isolated version of reality is the only one that matters. And it's so insidious because, at first, you might even feel like this person is just looking out for you. Maybe they express concern for you in a way that feels caring, like they're the only one who truly sees things clearly. But what they're really doing is systematically removing everyone else's voice from the equation, replacing it with their own. It's not about protecting you, it's about controlling your perception. The more they isolate you, the more you rely on them for validation, for affirmation, for clarity. What makes this kind of isolation even more dangerous is that it doesn't have to be extreme or obvious. It can be as simple as changing how you view your friends, family, or the world around you, until it feels like no one else is on your side. The more this happens, the less you reach out. The less you reach out, the more you start believing you're alone, and the more you start questioning your own perception of reality. You see, this isn't about them physically taking you away from people, it's about them creating an emotional and mental distance between you and everyone else. They know that once they've achieved that isolation, once they've made you feel like the only person who truly understands you is them, they've got you right where they want you. The more you believe that you can't trust anyone else, the more you're going to lean on them. And the more you lean on them, the less you're going to trust your own instincts, your own judgment, and your own sense of reality. It's like the slow fade into a world that revolves around their version of the truth, not yours. Number 7, they make you feel like you owe them something. There's this uncomfortable feeling that creeps in sometimes, this nagging thought that maybe, just maybe, you owe someone something. It's not an obvious debt, like money or a favor. No, it's a different kind of owe, the kind that's intangible, where the favor is buried under layers of expectation and guilt. You didn't ask for it. You didn't sign up for it. But suddenly, because of someone's actions or words, you find yourself questioning if you're somehow obligated to them. It's like they've subtly planted this idea that your time, your energy, your life in some way should be a kind of repayment for something they've given you, whether or not you wanted it in the first place. It starts innocently enough. A compliment, a gesture, or even just a little bit of attention. At first, it feels nice. You feel seen, appreciated, maybe even understood. But then, things take a turn. Slowly, the feeling shifts. That thank you starts to feel hollow, because the more they do, the more you feel like you should return the favor. Only it's never clear what the favor is. The more they give you, the more pressure starts to build on your shoulders. It's not that they're explicitly asking for something in return, but their actions suggest that you should somehow give back. It's the kind of feeling that's hard to shake, like a weight that settles over you when you're not looking, Here's the tricky part. You never agreed to this unspoken contract. You didn't ask for their help, their praise, or their attention. And yet, there's this undercurrent of expectation, as if your autonomy, your decisions, your very life is now being subtly tied to their actions. You start to question if you should feel grateful, if you should feel indebted, because their gestures seem to come with invisible strings attached. It's like they've wrapped up their kindness or attention in a neat little package, and now you feel responsible for carrying it around, like you owe them something because they gave you something that, quite frankly, you didn't ask for. The worst part is, this kind of debt doesn't just sit quietly in the background. It disrupts the way you see yourself and your relationship with them. You start to wonder if you're being selfish. You start to wonder if maybe they did all these things for you because they were expecting something back, and now you feel a little guilty for not giving them what they want. It's this loop that can trap you in self-doubt. You wonder if you're being ungrateful, or if maybe you're not living up to the unspoken expectations they've placed on you. But here's the thing, you never signed up for this. You're not responsible for fulfilling anyone's unspoken needs or desires. But the more this feeling festers, the harder it is to separate their expectations from your own reality. It's a slow, insidious process, this idea that you owe someone something. It doesn't hit you all at once. Instead, it creeps in with each gesture, each compliment, each favor they offer. Before you know it, your self-perception starts to change. You begin to feel like you're constantly walking on eggshells, trying to balance what you want with what they might expect from you. And that's the kicker, they may never even ask for anything explicitly. It's all implied. But somehow, you feel like you're constantly trying to repay a debt you didn't even know you owed in the first place. And that's the manipulation at play here. It's not about what's openly said, it's about what's unsaid. It's about creating a dynamic where your sense of self-worth becomes tangled up with their needs, their wants, and their expectations. It's the kind of pressure that can make you feel like you're always falling short, always in a state of obligation. And the more you try to balance that out, the more you lose sight of your own needs, your own desires, and your own freedom. The worst part is that you begin to doubt yourself. You question if you're being unreasonable, if you're not doing enough, if you're letting them down somehow. You start to believe that you do owe them something, even though you never agreed to it. It's this slow erosion of boundaries, where your sense of autonomy begins to fade, replaced by a constant worry about meeting their unspoken expectations. The way out of this is tricky, though, because it's not always clear how to break free from that feeling of owing someone something. The key is recognizing that you don't need to repay every kindness, every favor, every little thing that comes your way. You're allowed to exist without being constantly tethered to someone else's expectations. And while it's okay to appreciate what others do for you, it's equally important to remember that you are not obligated to fulfill unspoken debts. Your time, energy, and life are yours to live, not to repay. And that's a wrap on the 7 subtle signs of a master manipulator. If this video helped you recognize toxic behavior, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more content that empowers you to take control of your life. Have you ever encountered a master manipulator? Share your experiences and insights in the comments, let's learn from each other. Remember, trust your instincts and always protect your peace. Stay sharp, stay strong, and I'll see you in the next one.